Welcome everyone to Super Farmer of Hope. I'm Maria Pepitas, and I'm really pleased that you've joined us for the second of our lessons that are part of the Confident Conversations materials. So today, as presenters, I'll be doing most of the presenting today, but my colleagues Jake Jacobs and Lori Walensky are here to help support today's session. And we're all working with the University of Delaware Cooperative Extension and are involved in the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network in the Northeast, which is called Cultivemos. So welcome, everyone. Today's objectives are to understand how to connect and how connection can help manage stress, and to recognize and cultivate character strengths, and learn the importance of hope in managing stress. In the chat and in an email yesterday, you received the handout for today. We will be referring to it, so if you want to open that up in another screen, that would be wonderful. So, using humor and improv to build communication skills around stress and mental health is a project that Cooperative Extension in the region has been working on and was kindly funded through Cultivemos, the Northeast Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. But one of the things that kind of came out of our discussions within Extension was the importance of finding ways to communicate effectively with farmers and using improv techniques, which we talked about last time. And this time we'll talk about some additional strategies that you can use to build communication to help address stress and improve mental well-being. So, what are character strengths? Character strengths come from the world of positive psychology. There's actually some theory out there to focus on kind of the positive aspects of ourselves that really help us to be resilient, that help us to navigate the world, really. And all of us have these character strengths. There are officially 24, although some research is saying 26 or 28. But there's listed here are 24 character strengths. And according to the Values in Action Institute of Character, they are a common language of personality traits that can help us, as I said, manage the world. But as a communication strength, as a communication tool, we can begin to recognize them and build on them. These are oftentimes the characteristics that help people get through hard times. And I'm going to encourage you to read through this list or the list that's in the handout and kind of identify, which ones you identify with. Which ones are your strengths? And if you feel like it, type them in the chat. These character strengths reflect our personal identity. They produce positive outcomes for ourselves and for others, and they contribute to the collective good. From the positive psychology perspective, psychologists recognize that in order to manage the world that we live in order to interact with others, in order to succeed, in order to flourish, in order to be resilient, we need these character strengths. And that when we think about how do we grow, how do we flourish, it's these kinds of character strengths that help us achieve that. And all of us have all of these, really. Just some of them may be a little bit more prevalent than others. So these are the building blocks for a flourishing, happier, hopeful life. And your character is really an intersection of your thoughts and feelings and actions. These strengths are innate resources that enable us to be resilient in all sorts of different contexts. And as I said before, everybody has all 24. And each of these character strengths are multi-dimensional. This means that character strengths should be viewed in degrees. And, and though we likely use some more than others, it makes sense to consider how much of our character strength you have and which ones you rely on. Character strengths are plural. This means that you have multiple character strengths that you express interdependently and in unique combinations. With 24 character strengths, individual differences, and varied context, there may be many unique combinations of expression. This is one of the ways we are unique as humans. As an example, while thinking through a complex project, it's possible to simultaneously express leadership, perspective, curiosity, or prudence. Character strengths tend to be contextually dependent. That means that you express more or less of a character strength depending on the context you are in at any given time. So you may find it easier to express kindness at a family dinner than in a stressful work environment. With character strengths in each of us, recognizing them and using them can help us manage stress and build stronger relationships with others. The research really supports the importance of developing character strengths in ourselves and others. And the field of positive psychology focuses on how to help us prosper and lead healthy, happy lives. Positive psychology is a scientific study of the positive human functioning and flourishing on multiple levels that include biology, personal, relational, institutional, cultural, and global dimensions of life. By identifying one's positive character strengths, we can use that information to better understand, identify, and build on these strengths to help oneself and others succeed and solve problems and lead happier lives. So I thought we would try to practice this idea of spotting character strengths. So on the screen is a little story about Danny, and Danny works on a farm as a laborer. And recently, Danny noticed that a couple of other workers have been taking bushels of harvest home to sell to their neighbors. Danny knows that every bushel that the farmer doesn't sell impacts the farm profitability and could mean that the farm could lose or could close their operation. Danny decides to tell the supervisor about what was witnessed. So my question for you is, what character strengths do you spot in Danny? And what I'd like you to do is type in the chat. Take a look at that list of 24 words, character strengths, and type them in, the ones that you spot for Danny. So I'm seeing integrity, honesty, bravery. Someone else said honesty, honesty, teamwork, fairness, perspective, fairness. Great. Honesty, yep, fairness, perspective. Bravery, I would add bravery. Like, how brave is that to like go to your supervisor and kind of share what is being seen? So yeah, great examples of character spotting. Was that hard to do? Just, I don't know, give a thumbs up or a thumbs down or write in the chat, was that hard to do? So I'm seeing lots of no's. So thank you. I don't think it's hard to do either. Okay.
I think it just helps to know that it's something we need to be intentional about in all of our relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Lori. All right. We're going to try another one. This one's a little bit different. So Sonny is a hardworking farm operator, and each day the list of things to do is endless. Lately, Sonny has noticed that his energy level is low and he hasn't been as enthusiastic about his business operations. Others have asked, what's the matter? As he isn't as up as he usually is. Totally frustrated, Sonny decides he needs to take a morning for himself to go fishing, a long lost hobby, and then come home to spend time with his family by taking them to dinner and the movies. So again, let's take a look at our list. What are some of those character strengths that you might spot in Sonny? I'm seeing self-regulation, self-reflection, self-awareness, spirituality, honesty, perseverance, bravery, self-awareness. That's great. Connected to others. Prudence. Yes, Michelle, thank you. For his own well-being. That's great. Yes, loving. All great responses. Thank you. I want to try a little experiment. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And hi, everybody. I'm going to put you guys in breakout rooms. Just, introduce yourself. And then what I want you to do is just talk a little bit about how you might incorporate strength spotting into your work as you interact with clientele and farmers and whatnot. All right, ready, set, go. You're going to introduce yourselves and just talk about how can strength spotting be included into your work. All right, we'll see you in a few minutes. So welcome back, everybody. I'm curious to hear what ideas you have around integrating strength spotting into your work. So would anybody like to share?
Well, if the group I was in, one of the participants shared that oftentimes she'll be in conversation when someone's putting themselves down, and she tries to reframe that so that it segues into a more positive conversation. And I thought that was really helpful.
That's a great suggestion. Great process.
A participant in the group that I was in doesn't do a lot of direct work with producers, but pointed out, and I thought this was a really important point, that trying to do more strength spotting with coworkers and colleagues is another place that's important to bring that activity, to try to change your thinking a little bit. And one person one of the people in our group does direct work with producers and also is a farmer, and pointed out that it's really hard when you're in the midst of a problem in a farm situation to look at the strengths, because you're so preoccupied with trying to solve whatever the difficulty is.
That's true.
I think that it's important for as an extension person to be able to point out the strengths of some of our farmers and ranchers, because as beginning farmers, they don't often know what characteristics it takes to carry out that job day in, day out. And my example was when they go to the farmer's market to sell, they're not, maybe the grower is not the best person to be selling, and some other person in that farm should be the person doing the selling, because like most farmers, I want to tell you how good my product is. I want to tell you how special it is and what it can do for you. Where if you're a buyer, you don't buy things that way. You buy things because it looks pretty and it's probably going to taste good. So the person selling should be the person, that knows how to sell. And those are different characteristics. And I think a lot of times for beginning farmers, we have to give them permission. And so knowing their characteristics helps them with that permission, that they can decide that they could do this job better than someone else at the farm.
That's a great observation, Susan, that we all have strengths, but some of us are better at some of them than others, right? And so being honest with oneself, right, to know what you're good at and helping others to see what their strengths are can be really important, not only for building trust and communication, right, having confident conversations, but also for doing the work that we do. And in the case of our farmers, the operations, the parts of the operation that they might be really good at versus colleagues or their coworkers or their farm workers even, right, having skills that can be elevated. Let's see. So what's going on in the chat over here? Our group talked about how strength spotting would help in team building, how it helps you understand yourself better as well, and also how to build relationships with producers for better communication. That is right on target. Thank you. And let's see. Question about how best to incorporate strength spotting into conversations and interactions. So is that a question?
Just above that, Sandra Yecker had asked, after I spoke, labeling peers' strengths proactively to promote appreciation. And that's certainly one way that you can incorporate this strength spotting skill. So I was throwing back out the question, what are some good ways to do it? As somebody's trying to explain their problem, might not be the best moment for you to say, well, I've noticed that you are really compassionate. So, is there any discussion around that? Do you have some good ideas on how you can make sure the strength spotting fits into your communication?
I think some people are just naturally better at doing that. And I think if you're not, if one of you are not, or if I'm not, I just, like I said earlier, I think you just have to be intentional about it and work it in slowly. I think we probably all can do it and do it. It's just a matter of whether we do it regularly enough, perhaps.
I think it also changes your thinking. I find for myself, particularly when somebody is doing something that, maybe counter to what I was thinking about, or maybe is actually doing something that I know is not a good direction, to change my thinking from a critical place to a positive place. Remember, this person has some good strengths. So let's focus on where those strengths are, to change my thinking before I open my yap. That individual put into the chat, for example, I appreciate your honesty, and then go on from there, starting out with a comment, recognizing that strength.
Exactly. They're great suggestions, I think, especially if someone is struggling or has been trying to do their own problem solving, and then we're coming in kind of as experts or educators, or folks that can guide their decision making. Recognizing those strengths as part of our interaction with them can certainly build trust and relationship. And then coupling that with what we learned last week around yes and, right? I mean, you can really combine the strategies by recognizing their character strength, and kind of then adding, right? And right, you've really brought a lot of perseverance to this problem, right? And and then doing your offer, right? So it's using the strength spotting as a tool to to put a positive spin, to kind of create hope, to help help ground where they are in something that is more positive than in something that's more negative, right? Because most people are really critical of themselves. They've got their little voice in their head saying, oh, I was so dumb, oh, I should have done this, oh, blah blah blah. And so I think what this helps us do is see that yeah, we may not always make the right decisions, and we may make mistakes, but you know what, there's also these other things that can help us be resilient and flourishing and problem solve in a different way. So that's really one of the motivations behind sharing this this kind of theory around positive psychology and these characteristics, so that we can help reframe some things in a way that can move people forward. We talked a little bit about,
We have someone who has their hand up. I'm sorry to interrupt.
oh, well, go right ahead. Thank you.
Hi, Maria. And I was wondering about the challenges sometimes that we get into when we're communicating with producers that are what we call old order or plain sect producers. I think this strength spotting would be greatly useful there. I think it's such a good, I'm so excited about it. I'm going to share this with my colleagues. So I don't know if any of you all have some struggles working with a different, social group like that, or if that's something that you might have more tips on or suggestions, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Anybody have any thoughts to share with Rose? Well, I think, honestly, I think people like it when people are noticed, right? When a characteristic of oneself is noticed, and especially in farm operations, that their hard work, right, is noticed and recognized in a way that even though they might brush it off and say, kind of are humble about it. You noticed humble is one of the words as a character strength, right? I mean, there are ways to I'll just say subtly, right, recognize the strengths without being overly exuberant, right? Where I can see some of our old time farmers would just roll their eyes and go, you're just being silly, right? So there are ways to, even in a serious manner, say, you can tell, right? You can tell that you really love this land and have taken, our great steward, and you have been perseverant in your operation, right? I mean, you can share the words, right, without it being overly exuberant where someone might not take you seriously, right? So
Yeah, I was going to add that I think if it's a new group or a person in a group that you're not real familiar with, just ease it in because I from what I think what I might have heard you say is that you didn't want to be patronizing. to people who you're maybe not too familiar with. So
Mhm.
easing into it, making sure they're comfortable with it. Because they could very easily say, well, you don't really know me that well. So how can you, make these points? But if, based on what you're telling me, this sounds like you have these attributes.
Mhm. Exactly. And the same way that we might go to a farm and see disarray, right, and are concerned about mental well-being, right, because the farm isn't, as tidy as it used to be, or there's equipment that might be broken down, or you can use those same observation skills, right, to also recognize the good things and comment on that. And because we know that that is evidence of who that person is, right, or where they are at this moment. So that's also another way to just recognize some of the talents and the characteristics that an individual might have. Yes, and I would agree, Jake, that there's no downside to strength spotting. Um, even if somebody chuckles back at you and says, no, 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 you don't know me very well, right? I mean, you don't know. That might be the response anytime they get a compliment,
Mhm.
right?
But there are also some assumptions that you can make about someone. If you're talking to a farmer, there's certain attributes that they have if they've been in farming for any length of time at all. You know that they have to have a certain amount of resilience and flexibility and either courage or insanity. Sometimes I'm not sure which. But there's certain attributes that they come to their career with. So that's not really that big a stretch, even if you don't know them that well. You know that they have come with some very strong attributes.
Right. That's right. That's great. Thank you. Anybody else want to share or ask a question before we move on? So we talked a little bit about this already and debriefed. So I'm going to move on here. So what we just did in our little activities is something called strength spotting. And one of the things that I have found, especially with younger people, is they don't often know their own strengths. And so one of the things I wanted to share was this website, the viacharacter.org. There is actually a free inventory where you answer some questions, and then they kind of give you your top 5 strengths based on answering the questions, the way you answered the questions. So, and one of the things that the positive psychology people are saying is this tool of focusing on and helping people identify their strengths, and for us to identify our own strengths, and cultivate them, right? Whether it's more training or whether it's, practicing the use of those strengths, of being verbal about, this is the kind of thing I can bring to the table. This is all good for us psychologically. And so it's really important then to figure out what our strengths are and bring them to the table, even in our work, right? And in our family relationships and in our friendships. And then learning how to build those strengths in others. This is what helps create, well, all sorts of positive outcomes. So as we've talked before, farm life has those stressors, and we often have the plan, and it's, we're going from here to there and nothing's going to get in the way. And then of course reality hits and stuff gets in the way. And so one of the things we wanted to kind of connect then, and I know I'm reiterating a little bit, but the idea of strategies to sort of get through the reality of the ups and downs of life is really about understanding one's own strengths, and using those to create hope, to create solutions, to bring in other people to help move forward and cope with the ups and downs of life. So, and then combining that with communication and the yes and technique, or the appreciative inquiry techniques, all of those things as educators or service providers, we can really bring that to the table to help support and support the mental well-being of our clientele. So, and we talked about this last time, that mental health is a spectrum, and that everybody, people don't have to be in crisis to need help and support, and asking for help is a sign of strength. And sometimes, I have found that sometimes connecting to people's strengths is a way to help them have the strength to ask for help, right? Uh, and then supporting them in their opportunity to kind of connect out to the community to ask for help. So knowing your strengths, that can help build relationship. It can build connections. It can change that brain function in positive ways. It can help dissipate that negative voice that oftentimes is in our heads. And when we start interacting with people in positive ways, using appreciative kinds of communication styles, it can create a shift that moves people towards hope. So I am going to give you guys a homework assignment, right? And think about a time when you were at your best, and can be any kind of context. And I want you to share the chart that I gave you in the handout, that we gave you in the handout, and maybe have a dinner conversation and encourage everybody to share a story, and then do some strength spotting around the dinner table. All right, so I would now like to share the Super Farmer of Hope video that was created by the Extension cohort with funding from Cultivamos, the Northeast Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. This is the second video that we offer. That kind of is a step beyond, right? The one that we saw in Conversations in a Cornfield.
Did you hear?
What?
Did you hear?
What?
There's a superhero in Vermont.
A superhero? Is it Bernie?
No, it's the super farmer of hope.
Is that a thing?
Hope? Super farmer. Super farmer. Super farmer.
Hope!
Oh, so you're the one everyone's talking about. The super farmer of hope.
Yes, I represent the H word.
Harvest?
Hope!
First of all, that's not a thing. Super farmer of hope. Second of all, how can you have hope? Tell me how you can have hope. Tell me how anyone can have hope.
Not have hope? My God, man, what do you mean?
My neighbor Bill, he's about to lose his dairy farm at 30 years. My teenage son thinks that farming is too hard and a waste of time. My farm manager has to hide every single time he sees a cop car because they won't stop hounding him just because he's brown.
Because he's an immigrant?
No, he was born and raised in upstate New York. He can't even get a bank loan to buy his land.
Wow. That is a lot to unpack. Let me take off my cape. Sit. Listen, no one said farming would be easy. Times are hard. And daring to have hope, that can be scary.
You're the super farmer. Have you ever watched your entire life's plans unravel?
Yes. And one time I even watched my entire cape unravel when someone stepped on it.
I'm being serious.
So am I. I had to buy a new cape.
Okay, I'm out of here.
Wait! Listen, I know farming's a lot. Long hours, COVID, climate change, changing regulations, crazy market fluctuations. You have a drought one week and a flood the next. We have grim bank accounts and even grimmer futures. Is that a word? Grimmer? And then to top it off, we have so much division in this country. Good grief, I hadn't thought about everything all together like that. That is a lot. Oh, this is terrible. Things are really terrible. They're worse than I thought. Oh.
But we're not alone.
What?
We're not alone. We have each other.
What do you mean, regular farmer?
Well, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, farmers realized the importance of joining together. They organized, they built cooperatives, they literally joined together. They built 4-H. 4-H. The Farmers Bureau, one of the strongest lobbies in the United States. You know, farmers realized the importance of building hope together. It's like, you know, they literally planted seeds. Seeds of hope.
Oh, too far with that last one. You almost had me, but that seeds business, come on. But you're right. The super farmers among us.
Whoa. Among us? I mean, there are others?
Oh, yes. Many. And the super farmers among us, we have to have hope. Without hope, what do we have?
Nothing.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing. Without hope, you have nothing.
That sounds like it belongs on a needlepoint pillow. Awkward. You know, now that you say it, it seems like there's a superhero in each of us that needs to be cultivated. But when you're the superhero, tell me, how do you cultivate hope?
How do we cultivate hope? Do you need me to spell it out for you?
I do. Hey, Kate!
When you feel hopeless, take some deep breaths and find the one thing that is working or that you are grateful for. When you feel hopeless, work on strengthening personal connections. It's the human and the emotional connections that keep us going. When you feel hopeless, do something, anything that brings you joy. When you feel hopeless, talk to someone. Share your insecurities or worries. Keeping it all bottled up only makes it worse. And when you feel hopeless, find, build, brainstorm, create, deepen, cultivate, support, and be supported by your community.
Wow. I didn't expect to get so much out of you. I thought this whole sketch was going to be fluff.
I know. Listen, I know that farming is hard. It takes hard work. But it also takes resiliency and community and
hope.
Yes, hope, regular farmer. No. Super farmer.
Does this mean I can fly?
No.
Okay, so just a few reflection questions about our video. What stands out for you after watching this video? And maybe type a few things in the chat, and then what character strengths did you see in the characters in the video? So I will stop sharing for now, and we can do a little talking. So it is, what stands out for you in the video, and what are some of those character strengths that you saw in the video? Those characters. All right, we're seeing, let's see, empathy, bravery, humor, creativity, confidence, patience. Yeah, all great characteristics. Zest. Yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm by our super farmer. Yeah, great. So, okay, now I'm going to ask another question. Do you think you could share this video with some of your clientele? We got a thumbs up. All right. Any other thumbs ups? Thumbs up. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah. It's kind of inspirational, isn't it? I have to say, it was so fun to do those videos and to wear the cape for a little while. Thank you. All right. That's great. Anything else? Any other observations from this video? Yeah, thanks, Jake.
Sometimes we have to be reminded to hope.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Sometimes we need to be reminded to hope. That's why I love this strength spotting stuff, because, you know, it kind of makes you feel a little better that someone's acknowledged, right? And then you can have hope, right? So this slide kind of outlines the different things that our super farmers shared in the video about strategies to help build hope, including things like taking some deep breaths and thinking about times when you are at your best, or, you know, events, people, moments, or whatever that you are grateful for. And that helps kind of recenter you and connects you back to some things that maybe even be more important than what you're stressed about, right? Talking to people to build connection is really important. There's lots of studies that show that isolation is not a good thing, and that even introverts need to connect with others. Finding moments of or activities that bring joy, sharing worries, and cultivating community. Those were the key points from what our super farmer shared with us. So wrapping up, becoming a super farmer of hope, I think one of the things that this strength spotting idea brings to mind is the idea of really trying to know oneself, right? And that through reflection and conversation with trusted individuals, we can, you know, we can know ourselves, and we can also help other people know themselves, and help to acknowledge strengths. I know that the folks in the parenting world and the child development world talk a lot about using strength spotting as a tool to help cultivate the strengths in children. So we want to use strengths as a foundation for resilient thinking, for problem solving. We can integrate in our appreciative inquiry and yes and improv techniques to kind of build those conversations. We want to observe behaviors and listen to others to to spot their strengths, and then tell them what we see and how we appreciate them. And then, of course, we want to engage the strengths of those around us, especially to tackle tough challenges. And so I know many of us may not know our own selves very well, or we hide ourselves. And so one of the things that I love about this little cartoon, right, is between a conversation between Batman and Robin, right? It suddenly occurred to me that the whole secret identity thing is just pretty ridiculous. And to me, it's funny in that it portrays Batman without a mask, but it's poignant in that we need to remember that we all have character strengths. We are all superheroes, and we all have a role in building hope and resilience, and in our clientele, and cultivating a community of support. So with that, I'd like to open it up for questions or comments. And I think my colleagues are also going to post in the chat our post-program evaluation. If you would please take a few moments to fill that out, we would really appreciate it. But with this, I will stop sharing and all right.